Why should environmental justice matter to us today?
So there's two answers for that. The first answer is for those who have been disproportionately impacted by environmental injustice, right? So today, there are communities globally, every country has their communities, right, that are receiving the brunt of the impact on this, right? So starting from scratch, environmental justice is essentially saying that an equal distribution of both the benefits and the negative components of energy usage in the environment, right? So me living in this location shouldn't mean that I receive more or less pollution, right? We should evenly distribute this. And so for people who are in the space of people who are in the communities that are not, who are receiving more pollution, right? Environmental justice matters because it means healthier air. It means your kids aren't suffering from asthma attacks and having to go to the hospital. It means you live longer. There is an immeasurable life impact to your life expectancy in these places. Cleaner water, less chances for cancer. So there's a whole array of reasons why. All right, now for people who live in areas that are disproportionately cleaner, right? They're like, hey, I already have low risk for cancer. I already have, right? Climate change is going to impact all of us, right? There's going to be no way of escaping that. And so when you focus on environmental justice, you actually accelerate your transition to a clean energy economy, a clean energy future, which means that you're increasing the likelihood that climate change isn't going to be as bad as we all fear. So you could have there's also an unselfish reason, right? I think it's fair that I care about other people, Maybe that rolls for some people, but realistically, we're all humans. We all have kind of what drives us fundamentally are kind of how can I improve myself and my family, right? First and foremost. And so for that, we have to accelerate our transition. Right now, we're moving way too slow. We have to accelerate it. And the fastest and cheapest way to accelerate that is to focus from an environmental justice standpoint.
Interesting. And I like that because you're looking at it not from one message for all, but you're looking at multiple messages here. So whether you're looking for the individual or the collective perspective, whichever works for you, let's talk about that and push the agenda forward, relevant to that. So that
no matter what your beliefs or whatever, I'm happy to make an argument for you from that standpoint, because
give you a tailored plan. Like, this is how we can make the world better for you or for us or for your children, whatever your motivation in life
whatever your motivations are, I got you.
Let me help you save money and become cleaner and greener, in the process. 100%.
I mean, it's the reason why these tech companies are all going green, right? It's good business.
It's good business. Good business. Definitely. Have you seen a shift in the thinking behind environmental justice over the recent years?
I'll speak from an American standpoint because obviously I haven't traveled. I've traveled to Germany a little bit, but other than that, I haven't traveled abroad during the pandemic. But in America, there was obviously the murder of George Floyd and several other individuals, Black individuals, in that short period of time that really sparked one of the largest kind of protests in our country's history around police violence, right? And it was sustained too. And if you look at the people who were in those protests, it was diverse, more diverse than we've ever seen before. And so from that, it changed the dynamics here in America, where beforehand, you couldn't talk about race and racial issues and racism without it being kind of pigeonholed, right? Without you being pigeonholed, without you potentially losing your job, chance of promotion, many things, right? Afterwards, it was now safe and actually encouraged to talk about these things, to talk about the racial issues in America, that the fact that Black people have 10% the wealth of white people in America, right? The fact that you have to have 5 more plus years of experience and an additional degree to even have the same chance of getting a job, right? Like the fact that you're 800% more likely to be shot by a cop if you're Black, right? Like these kind of racial divides and clear, stunningly drastic divides were allowed to be talked about and encouraged to be discussed. Now, as a result, environmental justice has become less of a side item and more of a forward-facing thing, at least vocally. Now we haven't seen the real transition in the money fully yet that we'd like to see. We haven't seen it in the actions from a lot of these companies who were posting on their LinkedIn, Black Lives Matter and all these items. They haven't necessarily followed through, right? I think there was a study that came out that looked at the amount of money that was pledged in that first 6 months and how much of it actually came through, and it was like 15%, something like meager. So there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of speaking out. Black Lives Matter, we care, justice, equity matters, all these things. We're not seeing the full follow through of it. But fundamentally, just the fact that people are saying that is a huge paradigm shift in the way that America's working. And I would ask whether, I know in parts of England and other places, there was a big outrage and push as well and protests. I don't know what was going on in Melbourne and Sydney, et cetera, but in America, there's definitely been a shift in a more uplifting of environmental justice in the conversation.
Interesting. From a Black Lives Matter perspective, yeah, it was massive globally. If you look at the UK or Europe in general, from a sporting context, everyone started taking the knee. Some people objected, but majority of people said, no, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting to see. Pandemic is we're 2 years into it, and teams are still doing it, not only at the local level, as in, say, English Premier League, but also the international level, whether it was the Euros, whether it was the T20 World Cup in UAE. So it's been really interesting. In Australia, yeah, there were protests as well.